All right, it's getting cold. Time to install the diesel heater. I'm gonna show you how I do it as quick, clear, and concise as I can. Let's get started. All right, real quick, I'm gonna explain the general concept of how this thing works. If you already know or you don't care, you can skip to this. Otherwise, this is how it works. So this is your main heater. This is where the combustion happens inside. This is just a mounting plate which helps you install it. It takes fresh air through a filter, through the tube, into it, heats it up, shoots the hot air out the vent, and then the exhaust comes out here, through this tube, and through a muffler. It heats things up by burning diesel fuel that gets pushed through this pump, this fuel filter using this line or an upgraded line, and then this is the wire harness. All of these clips fit one way into one thing, so it's kind of hard to mess up. And then your LED screen lets you set the settings once you get it all hooked up. All right, really the first step is finding out where you can put it in your van. You have to make sure underneath is clear, so we'll do that. So my build, it's going under that bench. All right, so I was able to go under the van and mark from where the wheel well is to make sure that right here will be clear. Just gonna go in here like that. And then when you're drilling holes, you can use your mounting plate to find out, use it as a template and mark them. I'm under the van. Just want to show you what you'll be looking at. Pretty much, you just don't want to drill into anything important. You just want flat, normal. That's the wheel well. Measured off of that, I know I'm going to be in here. Another important thing to pay attention to is where your outtake is going to go. So if you have something mounted, you know, too close and you want this to turn, obviously there's not enough room. Mine is going to go through this wall and then out through this cabinet over here. But just keep that in your mind. From the bottom, I drilled, you can't see it, but there's a very tiny drill bit. The smallest one I can through, just to make sure where I'm thinking is gonna work, and it will. So now we're gonna get set to drill the holes for everything to go through. I can place this here. This all fits. Now I can mark this and drill those holes. Another important thing is that once your hoses and clamps are attached, there's gonna be, you know, space with stuff in it. So I'm gonna use two support beams going this way and this way to raise this all up. So all of that stuff will be above the floor. And then everything will be sealed from underneath. But I just don't want the hose clamps. If you put this through and then you have to do the hose clamps from underneath, your life's a lot harder. So I just raise up the floor a little bit, make my life a bit easier. All right, to drill these holes, I have a 1 1/8 metal drilling bit. I would invest in this, honestly. Don't use a crappy one. You're gonna have a bad time. Go buy the $8 good one and it'll take 2 seconds instead of 37 minutes and a whole bunch of curse words. You can guess what I did the first time. There's one hole. I'm gonna do myself a favor and go underneath and check where that hole is and make sure that you haven't messed up, because it's easier to fix one hole than 2 holes. Looks good. We'll drill the second. Those 2 holes are done, and now you got to cut a hole for the fuel intake. This is a, looks like a 1/4 inch drill bit. I'm gonna make one more notch here for the fuel pump wire to fit and not get all messed up in. That's what my final hole setup looks like. Now I'm gonna put a piece of wood over it and paint it from underneath. You gotta paint it, or if it gets wet, it's gonna rust and you're gonna have a bad time. As that paint dries, I'll take you out there and we'll get everything else set up that we needed to. All right, we're gonna put together as much as we can put together. The first step is putting these little double screwed things, comes in the bag, short end, screw into there. Probably screw either end, but I screw the short one. Once those are screwed on, the mounting plate can get fidgeted on top. And then 4 bolts in that plastic bag as well. There's gonna be 5 bolts. One's a bit bigger and goes to this. Don't use that bolt on here. My last one didn't have a 5th bolt that was too big, So maybe they're all not like that. This one is definitely like that. All right, now we can put on the air intake hose with the hose clamp. Make sure you're putting the hose clamp in a position where it's easy to work on if you need to work on it later, or you know, anything like that. And it goes on the side closer to where the wire is attached. And then the exhaust on the other side, farther away from the fuel nipple. Again, a well-placed hose clamp. And now this whole thing can be dropped down through your holes when we get to that part. While you're waiting, you can also get the blocks cut. This is just a 2x3 split in half. That's gonna be like that. So then all that stuff is above my floor and just the tubes stick through. Makes your life a bit easier. For putting the fuel filter to the fuel pump, you wanna make sure there's an arrow pointing which way the fuel flows, which means it comes in this side. Make sure it's on the correct side. You want to clean the fuel before it goes into the pump, right? Cool. So it's gonna be on my driver's side and the fuel pumps this way. So you're gonna want the thick part on the same side as that, so that it pulls from the tank to where it's going. And now this is gonna go on this side. Tip to get these lines on easier is just to heat the end up a little bit. They're real stiff, real tight, which is a good thing, but they're hard to get on. So we're just gonna get this a little warm. Slides on much easier. And then these clips aren't really the nicest. You might want to upgrade to better hose clamps, or just don't bend this in all the way, just enough to get it over and then really get it tight again. That's one side. Now we do the same for this. Don't forget to put your hose clamp on the hose first. Might have taken too long. Might have to heat it up. Nope, we're good. Ugh. And now you're connected. We're also gonna attach the fuel line to the fuel intake on the heater. I ran this through the hole in there and ran it through underneath to see how long I was gonna need it. You could just attach all of it and cut it all later, but this way I'm only handling this much instead of this much. All right, now we'll bring it inside and drop it in the hole. Oh, I see. Okay, make sure you don't have a little metal burr sticking out and giving you a hard time. There you go, there's everything. Nice. Now I'm gonna use these blocks. Make sure nothing's getting kinked. Boom. And that's all set. All right, and this is now what we have from underneath. Air intake, exhaust, fuel line, electric. These are gonna cross a bit. I'll have to do it so they're not too close to touching. If you can have your heater set up the other way so exhaust is behind, that's better. But the way my blower is, I need it going this way, but it's fine. This isn't my favorite mount for the exhaust and muffler, kind of wish there was a better spot, but there's not really. And if it was on the other side of the tire, I definitely wouldn't, because it'd be getting splashed. This should be pretty well protected in this pocket. And I don't want it mounting back here because I don't want the exhaust being too far under. I want it pointing out and getting out from under the van and away from the air intake. So it's not exactly ideal, but it's not the worst, and it's not going to really hurt me. I'm going to do myself a favor and tighten this up first. Again, you always want to position your hose clamp so you can work on it. This is the part where you wish you had 4 hands. But of course, you don't. And considering where you set things up so you can work on it later is important with these. These exhausts gets clogged. You can get stuff in your air intake, kinks in your fuel line. You want to be able to work on everything, take everything apart. They're pretty user-friendly. I can take apart that whole inside and put it back together by watching like one YouTube video. Especially if you're switching elevation, if you're traveling, that really messes things up. And if you're not on top of changing the settings, you can get this clogged or filled with water, that kind of stuff. I might honestly put a hole right here so water can drip out if it needs to, because I don't really like how this is pointing up. But if it's not pointing up, then it's real low. I think small hole at the lowest point is the best way. If you're smarter than me and know better, let me know, because my battery's not here yet, so I won't be using this for a while. If you're like, no, it being that high, you're totally gonna ruin it, let me know, because I don't think I am, but I might. I do not know everything. I need my drill. Alright, now for attaching the fuel pump, I took off this little cover. See right there, there's another one. If you don't have a Sprinter like this, you might not have those, but you might have something similar, or any hole. Bolted it onto it, pop it back in. Okay, now that's in there. And fuel line. Now I just gotta finish running them up to here. This white hose is way tighter than the green hose, which will probably mean for a lot less likely to get air leaks. So if you have the time, go get the proper hose. Phew. Definitely makes them tighter to get on though. My biggest issue with these has been elevation and air leaks. And I think this white tube is gonna make a lot less air leaks. But all right. That's hooked in. It all runs back. Boop. It's looking good. All right, now I just have to attach it into my diesel tank. Again, if you don't have this Sprinter, this probably won't work. You have to use the other tank. There's plenty of videos for that. So check those out. I'll try to find a good one and link it. But for this diesel tank, there is an old S-bar heater. Most likely doesn't work anymore, and even more likely you don't use it. So we're gonna splice off of that line and attach our fuel to there, and then we don't have to drop the tank. Okay, I'm underneath. This is the driver's side front wheel. That's the driver door. I'm underneath. You'll see the tank and this support. In between them, you'll see this thing. So this is actually a factory fuel pump that goes to that auxiliary heater you'll never use. So I'm gonna take this line right here and attach it to my hose, and then there's no need to drop the tank. Okay, so I have that line cut underneath. In order to connect the line from your heater to that, you have to use an in-between hose. This hose is a 1/4 inch thick, 820 Ackwell Green Bar Quarter SAE. It doesn't have to be like high pressure hose or anything. Just a hose that'll fit this hose. I'm gonna do as much as I can, not under the van. I'm actually gonna put 3 on this, just to be a little extra. That's attached. This is gonna attach to the line I spliced, I'll show you. And then that attaches, and then this end goes back to your fuel filter of the heater. You push the line from the van's diesel tank into this, you wanna make sure it gets in and butts up with this line. You don't really want this getting involved except for holding the 2 lines up against each other. That's why I'm putting this middle one on. I'm gonna tighten that right where the connection is and just make it a little tougher. I wanna get all the diesel off. And you don't want to be pulling on this hose. So with my left hand, I'm holding it in place while I'm working on it. All right, it butts up against the other one. And we tighten it all down. Connected at the fuel pump, comes down, attaches here, fuel filter, fuel pump, electric, fuel, all the way back to there. All good. All right, that's where I'm gonna end it. The final couple steps of like adding your vents and stuff, I'm sure you can figure out. I don't have my solar set up yet or my battery in, so I can't test this. Once it comes in, I will test. And I'm also gonna add this chart for you. This is the elevation chart. So as you change elevations, you have to change the settings or you're gonna fill with carbon and it's not gonna be any good. Hopefully this was helpful and included everything you needed to know. I'm not sure if it was quick, but I did try my best to make it as concise as possible. Other than that, I hope this helped. Hope you're having fun building. Hope you're not worrying too much. This is all about fun, doing the best you can. And have a good day. Peace.